Hello there, this is Nicholas Jones, and today I'm going to be discussing robotics in the warehouse workplace. So an overview of this presentation, I'm going to be discussing my internship, the project that helped improve robots' performance in the warehouse, about Locus Robotics, and about the robots, how they improve work in the warehouse, and what I took away from the experience. Interning with Health Trust. My internship took me throughout the world of healthcare supply chain. From working in hospitals as a supply chain technician, I would be in the receiving area of the hospital and I would unload product and load that product up on carts and take those carts up to different departments and then stock supply rooms on that department for the nurses and doctors to have medical supplies for their patients. I worked on invoicing, which was reviewing the purchases of different products and looking at those invoices and making sure the numbers added up and entering those numbers and those prices into a database. I would audit product. So I was at Centennial Medical Center for their annual audit, and what they would do is go to different departments and make sure that they had the right material and the right amount and that everything added up. So the hospital and Health Trust knew how much product was in the hospital. And I worked as a material handler in the warehouse. So this is where I got a lot of experience with the robots, being around them, learning about them. And I also worked on a project to improve their performance. And I'm going to get into that later in this video. So Locus Robotics, there's their logo, and the white robots that you see here are the ones that I worked with in the warehouse. So as you can see on the right side of the screen, there's a model of one, and there's only one shelf. The ones that we had 3 shelves. So there were 2 shelves on the bottom and 1 on top. And on those shelves would be empty totes or bins, and that's where you would fill up the product. So here is a quick video about Locus Robotics, and this is going to be a little overview about them, and this is from Locus Robotics' website.
Looking to improve warehouse productivity. But not all robots are the same. Some systems are inflexible and require large investments. Others limit performance by forcing pickers to follow slow robotic carts. Only one solution has the intelligence and flexibility to help achieve the highest levels of productivity. This is Locus Robotics, the solution that thinks outside the cart. Locus frees your workers from cumbersome carts, dramatically reducing wasted walking time. Locus uses multiple nimble robots that deliver greater capacity and productivity for your warehouse. Let's take a look at how Locus's multi-bot solution works. Locus's intelligent clustering algorithm continuously reviews orders from your WMS to maximize productivity and chooses orders to optimize work density. At induction, Locus directs the associate to use the optimal pick container. It then dynamically calculates the smartest path through the warehouse and proceeds to the first pick where your associate meets the bot. The bot displays the pick information on an easy-to-read display in the associate's preferred language. Your associate picks the item, scans it with the integrated scanner, and places it in the appropriate bin. Here is the real game changer. With Locus, your associates don't follow the robot. After the pick, the bot directs the associate to the next closest robot for more work, while the robot moves to its next task, often with a different associate. Your associates engage with multiple robots to complete more tasks faster. With Locus, you get true task interleaving, with associates able to easily switch between picking and put away. Locus can.
Okay, so that video continues on a little bit more, and I'll go into the other details of Locus. So when you're working as a material handler at Health Trust specifically, you're looking for those robots, and they light up green, as you can see here. They're lit up green, and that's how you know that they're ready to be picked. And by picked, we mean removing product from the shelf and loading it up onto the robot. So as a material handler, when you approach the robot, you're going to look at a couple things. The first thing you need to identify is which tote or which bin out of the three of them the product is going to go to. And you can kind of see it up here, this blue bar here, and then there's a number right here. That's the number, that's the tote that you're going to put that product in. So the second thing you look at is what the product is. So the robot's going to know that it's very close to the product, and it's going to be on the shelf right next to it. But you need to identify exactly which product it is, because there's a ton of product, and you need to identify which product it is based on the label. So the robot's going to show a label, like, for example, E237. So E237 is a product that is on the shelf, and then you're going to look at the unit of measure for that product. So you're going to look at, there's a few different ones. There's individual pieces, so that if there were needles, it would be 2 pieces would be 2 needles. And then there's boxes, so 2 boxes would be 2 boxes of needles. And say there's 100 needles in a box, you'd have 200 needles with 2 boxes. And then there's cases, so cases are full of boxes. So you get the idea. You don't want to put a case of needles when it's only asking for 2. So that's a very important responsibility for the material handler to look at, and it's the easiest one to mess up. And we did audit a lot of the product that was leaving the warehouse, and the most common error we found was unit of measure errors. So having 8 instead of 10, or a box instead of an each or a piece. So yeah, that's pretty much all you have to think about as a material handler. And you will occasionally run into the stray robot that is lost, and you have to hit this red knob up here, and it resets it. And then if you need to, there's QR codes all at the bottom, so you can see these QR codes here on the shelving. That's how the robot knows where it is. So take it back over to one of those, let it scan it, and then it's ready to go on and go to its next item. So the Robot Performance Improvement Project, I worked on a project to improve performance of the Locus robots by replacing old and damaged QR codes. So naturally in a warehouse, you're going to have QR codes that are, ripped up or, scuffed, and the robot can't read it. So when it doesn't know where it is, it's going to stall out. So you have to make sure that all those QR codes are intact and visible to the robot, so they can be scanned. And I had to do that, and designating areas for cardboard and plastic. So when I arrived at Health Trust, there was a couple areas for the cardboard and plastic, but you had to walk out of your way to go to them. So we made designated areas for cardboard and plastic, from empty boxes of medical product, and having a easier go of putting that cardboard and plastic in a waste bin, so you're not having to walk across the warehouse to go do that. And then updating the layout of the warehouse. So we added an additional shelf, like a row, and that took a couple weeks, but we had to put those QR codes at the base of the shelving and label the shelves. And then get them ready for the workers that stock the product on the shelves to be able to do so. And so that took I think that took 3 weeks, but we were able to get that shelving up and label those shelves so the warehouse could hold more material. And yeah. So how robots have improved work at the Health Trust warehouse. So when I got to Health Trust, there was the workers were having to walk a lot, and when they added, they told me that when they added the robots, that they were walking 12 miles a day, and then that number declined to 7 miles. So the robots, it's a tough job being a material handler, and there's a lot of turnover, and a lot of that was contributed to the high amounts of miles that people were walking a day. So the robots greatly increased or decreased, I should say, the amount of walking that material handlers are doing, and that makes the work for them easier. And also, before the robots, the material handlers were having to go around the warehouse and stock the totes themselves, and that's a lot easier when you can just approach a robot that is already at the product. And so that just makes everything less complex, so it makes it a more organized system, and it overall increases productivity. The robots can get more done than a person stocking, because they know exactly where to go, and the person isn't having to look at a list and identify which aisle to go to. The robot just goes there instantly, so that's going to increase your productivity. And overall, all of that gets people home sooner. And after a long day of walking, as a material handler in a healthcare warehouse with healthcare products, upon their hiring, they're not allowed to leave until all the orders are filled, because if a product doesn't get to a hospital, then that's a patient that can't have a product. So, a material handler in a warehouse for medical products is just as important as a healthcare worker, as a nurse. So can the warehouse become more advanced as compared to the Health Trust warehouse? Absolutely. They do have robots, but it's still there's a lot of room for more automation, and that would come from changing the shelf design, changing how the products are packaged, and ultimately allowing a robot to get product from a shelf instead of the human. And Amazon is already doing this, and they're pretty much the world leader in warehouse automation. So going off of their model, I think Amazon's about as advanced as you can get, and I think the only thing that they could really improve upon is the speed of the robot itself. So a faster robot is going to get more done at a faster rate, and you could hire more people to pick those robots based on the warehouse design at Health Trust. And removing the human element. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there was a lot of human error when it came to unit of measure, and that can be avoided. And a robot, they're only programmed to do a certain amount of things, and that pretty much eliminates human error. So removing the human element is going to make a warehouse ultimately more efficient. Everyone's scared of robots because they're going to take our jobs, but at the same time, they are making the human element disappear, which contributes to a lot of error and lack of productivity. So takeaways from the working with them, I definitely, that's the first time I've ever worked with robots, and I think it was a great decision on the part of management to come up with that idea and integrate those Locus robots, because it has increased productivity. And overall, I think, it made the warehouse a much, much more efficient place. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.